Hi class, we're going to connect to the Team Foundation server using Visual Studio. I'm going to use Visual Studio 2019, and when I'm greeted with the startup screen, I'm going to choose Continue Without Code. And in my development environment, I want to have team services available because TFS stands for Team Foundation Server, and I don't see my team menu. So I'm going to use tools, get tools and features to add this workflow that I need to add to my Visual Studio installation. And what I want to add is Azure development. So I'll check that and go ahead and modify my Visual Studio installation. Notice that this is going to require a download. You can change the setting to download everything, then install, or install while downloading. I'm going to say yes. I want to allow this app to make changes to my device, and I should see the update progress screen. It's going to take a moment. So as this is downloading, we can talk a little bit about Team Foundation Server and source code control. It's going to close these processes, that's fine. When you develop source code for a company, that source code becomes an asset that belongs to that company. An asset is something that's worth money, and that software that you've developed is worth money to the company. It's a valuable resource. So in order to protect and control that resource, the company will have requirements for how to maintain and control that source code, making sure that old prior versions of the source code are available were it necessary to replicate some sort of process that had occurred in the past, and as well as making sure that any updates to the source code are properly saved and maintained in a working condition so that the source code is maintainable and reusable by other developers. My download is running. Great time to take a quick break. I don't know how my internet speed is comparing to yours. I think it could be a little bit better. But it's making some progress. Anytime I want to expand the capabilities of Visual Studio, I can update the features that are included in the installation. You saw where you could add Python support, wonderful different things like that. As this is running, let's take a look at what would be required for Visual Studio Code. to run TFS. We're going to be switching tracks, and instead of using Visual Studio Code, we'll be using the full-blown Visual Studio. You'll definitely have some questions about that as we go. In Visual Studio, I need to make sure that I have some settings set properly. So in Tools, choose Options, and we want Source Control. And in Plugin Selection, make sure you've got Visual Studio Team Foundation Server. You can check the other options, but there's nothing else that really needs to be changed. And then I'd like to be able to use the team services. So in my view menu, I'm going to choose, there's something, I want Team Explorer, but I should be seeing it on my menu also. So I'm going to choose Team Explorer, and that's going to show up over here with my Solution Explorer. It says View Team Explorer menu option from the toolbar from the Connect page. View Let me check that again. Well, we've got Team Explorer open. So there are lots of resources available here on Microsoft's site, but not any that tell us how to activate that menu. So let's continue on. We've got our Team Explorer window open, and that gives us all of the team options that would be available from the team menu. So I can continue working. What I want to do first is connect to my TFS server project. So I'm going to choose Manage Connections, and then from the drop down, connect to a project. On the Connect to a Project screen, at the top of the screen is some information about my Microsoft account. That information does not affect our TFS connection because our TFS connection is on an OTC server. So that's what we want to add. Let me remove it. Add Azure Devops server. So when I click add, this new text box opens up. For me to type the server URL, I need to be very particular about typing https://cisteam.otc.edu and then TFS. I'm going to add that. to my list of servers. So let me see if I can get that to prompt me to log in again. Notice that that can be a problem. There are lots of ways to get that login prompt to come up again. I'm just going to close Visual Studio and then reopen it since it seems to be prompting me each time I log in. And when I get the Connect login screen for CIS team, I need to be sure to specify the OTC domain by typing OTC /, then my OTC username and my OTC password. If you uncheck Remember Me, it will prompt you more often for your username and password, but I am going to leave that checked and click OK. And again, I was choosing Continue Without Code. My Team Explorer window now has more information because I am connected to my TFS or Azure Devops server. When I look at the Team Explorer window, it gives me several options. So let's take a look at those. The very useful one is the Source Control Explorer. Oh, and by the way, this is the home screen. So if I click the home icon, it will take me back to this screen when I'm using Team Explorer. The Source Control Explorer will show me projects that I have saved on TFS. My TFS CIS150 101 folder that I've created for our video series is empty and should look a lot like yours. Now, with the way that I connected to TFS, my local server is not mapped. I don't have a file location set up on this computer for information to be copied back and forth between the server and my local workstation. So I'm going to click this link and I'm going to set up a local folder to take care of my server information. So this is like a temporary location where I want to save code that I'm working on, and I'm going to choose the default location, which is in the users folder. And in the users folder, we should see a source folder, and this is going to be a workspace. I'll make a new workspace for this particular TFS project. Now in my workspaces folder, can click OK. And now anytime that I'm working on locally on source code that is in this 150 project, it will be copied to this location on my local computer while I'm working on it. That can also happen automatically when you connect to TFS. Sure, I'll say, yes, I don't have anything for it to get, that's okay. But now I see that for this TFS project, this is the local workspace where my code and projects will be copied or created if I'm using this TFS project. Well, we're all connected now to TFS through Visual Studio. It was a little tough. Let's close Visual Studio now and see if we're going to have to do all that again. We shouldn't have to, as a hint. Now when I reopen Visual Studio, again, I'll choose Continue Without Code, and I'm taken to my Team Explorer window. My Source Control Explorer for Team Explorer is still open. I can click on my 150 101 folder, got my local path, it looks great. I'm connected here. So I'm ready to create a new project. I'm going to choose File, New Project, and the Project Templates window should be displayed. I'd like to create just a console app. So I'm going to choose Console App.NET Framework, and you could search for console through all of the templates to make sure you've got the correct one. We want the one that is for the .NET Framework. Then I'm going to click Next to say, yep, that's the right template. And this project now, if you notice, is going to be created by default in a different project location. That's okay. You know, I'm just going to connect it to my TFS stuff. So let's see what happens here. This is just a test app. I'm going to create it. So my new app has been created, and notice that I have an option right here to add it to source control. We could use that. Let's see what that does if we choose it. It's choosing Git, and that's not the one we wanted. That's not even what we told Visual Studio we were going to use. So let's not use this button, all right? Instead, let's use File, Source Control, Add Solution to Source Control. Now I want to make sure that I'm working with the correct project. And inside my 101 project folder, this project will be saved in a new folder called Test Console App. But I could make additional folders if I wanted to organize my projects. I'm not going to do that at this time. I'm just going to say, yep, that's the project I want to save this in. And now notice that I'm in the correct project folder. Let's look at in Team Explorer, our Source Control Explorer again. That tab's still open. And now inside my project, my TFS 150 101 project, I have this new folder for our Test Console app. If I expand that folder, it does have some contents, but if you notice, they're kind of like, I don't know, they're not locked or anything. They're not checked in. So just remember that that's the state of things right now. Now in our program CS file, let's add or make a few changes. I'm going to get rid of all of these extraneous using commands and put in using static system console. And then let's create one line of code. We'll create our own hello world. So good. I'm going to save all. When I'm working with Visual Studio, notice that I don't have my file list over here. Instead, I have the Solution Explorer. Let's look at that window. The Solution Explorer shows me my C# project and then its different components. We're looking at, of course, at our program.cs file. We can see that in the tab over here, the file name. So we could close that tab if we wanted to. Now our entire solution has been added to source control. So we should be able to check it in at this time. Our team menu, if you notice, has showed up on me. That's kind of weird. Let's see what's on that menu. We do have some project settings, collection settings for security, our manage connection options to connect to our server and disconnect. So like I said, we weren't missing a lot by not having that menu. On our file menu, we can use our source control option again and notice that its options have changed. Now we have this option to check in. We can check that in this project into our TFS server folder so that these changes are saved to the server. Let's do that. Another way we could check in is if we right click on our solution, we have a check-in option. Either one would work. Now that takes us to the check-in screen in our Team Explorer window. We want to enter a check-in comment. This is the initial check-in of our project. And I'm going to check it in. And yep. Perfect. So I've checked in my code. If I look at my Source Control Explorer, I now see my last check-in date has been populated. My program.cs file and my other objects are under source code control. We've got the little green plus sign, so great. Now I want to make a change to this program.cs file. So the proper workflow would be for me to check it out. And of course, if we make a change, this checkout would occur automatically. We saw that in our options. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to go to my program.cs file and make an additional change. This class sometimes serves as the program tester. I'll put a comment in. And now I want to check that in. Now I've got a red check mark over here indicating that this CS file is checked out to me. It has changes that have not been checked in, so I can check it in. Notice the difference. When I originally checked in the project, I used the solution, checked in the whole thing. But now I'm really only making changes to this program.cs file. So that's the only file that needs to be checked in for an update. I do want to save everything. And I'm going to check it in. Now, if I look at my Source Control Explorer, again, I should be able to see that my check-in time has been updated. And I'm looking at my program.cs file. Perfect. In my Source Control Explorer, while I have my program.cs file selected, I could also run a compare. Notice the options that we have available. Here's a compare. Let's compare it with the latest version. They match. That's good. So I'm going to close this diff report. And I'm going to add a little bit more. And now if I go to my Source Control Explorer and do the comparison, compare with my local version, the one that's been changed, I see that there is a difference. My local version has this line. My server version does not. So I could check that in. Right now, if you notice, there are included changes on my check-in screen. So I'll say add another comment and check in. Great. So that concludes our video of how to connect to TFS. When you connect the first time, it can be somewhat involved, but now that we have our connection established, we just need to make sure that we have our connection open so that we can get source code from our TFS server and save our source code to our TFS server. So the correct workflow for you is every time you begin working on a project, you could go to your Source Control Explorer and select Get Latest Version of the project. Once you've got the latest version downloaded, you can double click on the SLN or solution file for that project. And then you can look at Solution Explorer to see that, yes, indeed, you do have that project open, and Teams Explorer to determine if you need to check it in or do any other source code maintenance to that project. This concludes this video. We will have more videos in this series. Working with TFS is something that can take a little bit of practice.